So you want to do seller's financing. So you want to do seller financing. How do you do it? Well, the number one thing you want to do is hire a lawyer. But that's going to be very important to make sure it's documented correctly. Fill out the deed and promissory note that's required for setting up a seller carry. So we can help aid you in this whole process, and you would still want the lawyer to fill that out and then check it over with you. And so the buyer and the seller each should have their own lawyer that they can work with. The buyer might be writing up the draft of the information, and the seller then could have a lawyer to review it, or vice versa. Next, when we write up the offer as the buyer in the Colorado contracts, and we're focused on Colorado here, in the contract we have a couple of things that we want to make sure that we have deadlines for. So one is the buyer's credit information. The seller is going to want to know what the credit score information is for the buyer to see if they would want to loan out to this buyer. Do they trust them that they're going to pay it back? Do they have a good credit score? And with that would be a disapproval where we can terminate the contract on the seller choice to terminate because of the credit score. And then another deadline for seller financing. Just like normally in a loan, we have a loan deadline where we get the information for the buyer. Here's all the final details of the loan, and yes, you qualify. We can now have one for the seller because the seller is the lender. Now, if we're writing up the offer, or if you're the seller, you might be doing a counter. The seller would probably want the buyer to pay the lender's title insurance. Of course, everything is negotiable. As far as upkeep of the home, to make sure that the buyer understands they're responsible for the upkeep of the home and maintenance of the home, any extra assessments that come up if there's an HOA involved, and do everything they need to maintain that house throughout the duration of this loan. We make sure that the lawyers are using the Colorado approved forms for the promissory note and the deed. In the deed, it's going to list out what the interest rate should be, the amortization, for example, amortized over 30 years, who the loan should be paid to, the name and address. It's usually the seller, where they currently live or going to be living, where they should be sending the money. Whether payments are going to be made monthly or quarterly, and how are taxes, HOA, and homeowners insurance to be handled. And so typically taxes, HOA, and homeowners insurance should all be handled by the buyer because they own this property now. The promissory note is the lender note, designating again the same details about the loan, amortization. I would add the amortization schedule to this document as an appendix to make sure we're very clear about how much principal and how much interest every single payment. And remember, you can always add additional information in the offer, in the additional provisions, or in a counter offer if you're the seller to clarify some details, just to have it set up so that you are going to move forward in a smooth transaction for setting up a seller carry. If you like this information and want to keep learning more, please subscribe to my channel.